Hello, everyone, and welcome to the
Q and A.
Wow. For February the 4th?
Yeah. Dude,
4th.
our Q&As kick ass. Like, especially compared to, like, ZeniMax's Q&As, which are, like, stupid.
What is it? They ask us questions?
Yeah, those are...
We don't have any idea what we want to do for this subject, so we want to ask you guys.
Yes.
I wish they would ask us... No, we're not...
No, we won't go into that.
We're going to hold off on what we really want.
No, seriously, I wish they would ask us relevant questions, like, would you like to see this in the game, or something like that, other than, if a Khajiit and an Argonian walk into the bar, you know, it's like, oh, it's the butt of a stupid joke, you know? But, anyway.
Alright, Daniel B. is our first question. Yo, quick question. Are you doing any Elder Scrolls? Yes, we are. Okay, let's see. Where does the question actually begin? Okay. By endgame content in Elder Scrolls Online, will it be like other games that do raids like WoW, requires tax and good groups of mixed classes, tanks, healer, DPS, etc.? So I guess he's asking, will there be like the usual holy trinity of, tank, healer, DPS, and will it have like the same tactics, I guess? Well, there's actually going to be a lot more tactics involved. Like, we were just watching the advanced combat thing again with that interview with the devs in Game Informer.
Yes.
We rewatched that again. And they were just nailing... just lost my train of thought there. They were really ingraining in us that the game's going to be focused on tactics above, like, cooldowns and other stuff that we're used to dealing with in other MMOs.
And what does that mean for the Holy Trinity?
The Holy Trinity, well, it's not going to be your usual, like, one person is going to be the designated tank, one person's going to be, or a few people are going to be DPS, and then one healer. Basically, one person can do pretty much all those roles, or at least specialize in a couple of them. So you may see one person that is built more towards a tank, so they may have the heavy armor, a lot of points put into health, so they have a lot of generation, they have a lot of damage mitigation, but that doesn't mean that they are strictly a tank. They can still put out lots of damage like any other class. And then again, with the healer on the other end of the spectrum, you may have a cloth wearer that has a lot of points in magicka, and they do have a lot of healing skills and stuff, but that doesn't mean that they are strictly a healer. They can still do damages and stuff like that. And then, of course, in the middle there, you got the DPS. Anyone can DPS. So
yeah,
it's you're still going to have somewhat of that trinity, but it's not going to be so specific like in other MMOs.
Right. The thing that excited me the most about watching the interviews was the fact that they were stressing that you will be able to play as a hybrid. They're encouraging hybrid builds. Right. And I think a majority of test fans that are coming over from games, I think a lot of them like to mix and match stuff. So if they can have the mechanics of parties and the mechanics of dungeons, go along with that whole mindset of, yes, we're going to get players here with many, many different play styles, then, that should definitely be encouraged, and they have made a point to address that. And then the other question you ask here is about endgame content in general. Like, what kind of endgame content we'll be seeing, like raids and stuff like that? Is that what he asked about?
I don't want to get too much into this because I know there's another question later on that we'll be answering.
Okay.
Going with that.
So we'll come back to that.
But there will definitely be raids. There's going to be several different types. I mean, then you'll also have the public dungeons that anyone can go into. They're not instanced at all, so there could be just one person there just doing his stuff, and then there could be 50, 100 people in one public dungeon just murdering everything. And it's supposed to scale and everything like that, kind of like what you see in Guild Wars 2, where there's a lot of scalability with mobs. If there's a lot of people there, you'll see a lot more mobs there. But anyways, there will be raids. I want to say 25 is the max, though. I want to say that's what I read, that 25 is going to be the max amount of players in an instanced raid. But don't quote me on that, because I'm not exactly 100% sure. Alright, so, and then for the tactics and stuff, I also want to leave that later, because I think we're going to probably do a whole discussion video on that, or at least partly on that.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, we're going to revisit the endgame. Endgame is such an important part of MMOs, It's what keeps them alive past their time, and that can make or break an MMO, and it's going to be a subject we talk extensively about.
Definitely determine its longevity.
Oh, yes.
Alright, so moving on to I Love Hello Kitty 85.
Aww.
And is doing some DJ stuff there. Alright, Okay, in one of your previous videos, you guys mentioned something about mega servers. Can you or someone explain more about that for the people who don't play many MMORPGs? And how will it handle the large amount of people in 200 plus player battles? Also, just a quick question. I remember in Oblivion that they had repair tools for armor and weapons, but Skyrim they didn't. Are they still keeping that out or bringing it back for the online play as another obstacle for players to deal with? Good questions. Alright, so for the mega server thing, just to reiterate this, and maybe for people that aren't familiar with it, we're probably only going to see like 2 main servers, one in North America and another one in the European area, the EU servers. So within those, though, you're going to see hundreds, if not thousands, of layers of the same server stacked on top of each other. And they're using what they're called a server phasing, which you might be familiar with a little bit when it comes to WoW and how they did some of the phasing stuff. So you'll enter an area and you'll be paired up with people, like-minded gamers, and also your friends that you might have on your friends list. I'm sure there's some kind of like pyramid or something, so like if your friends are there, that will take precedence above the like-minded people, so you'll be paired with them first, and then it'll go on down the line to just match people up with you so you're not completely alone. Unless maybe that's an option. Maybe you can be paired with no one except your friends.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
A lot of single-player people would really appreciate just having a dedicated phase of their own.
That would just seem like such a barren place, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I would definitely want some people. It is online, but I bet you some people would definitely opt in for that. But yeah, the best way to think about the mega server. It's a living, breathing thing that is always working, and it's going to go based off of the questionnaire you fill out when you first enter the game, which we've talked about many times before, and it's going to, ask you your preferred play styles. Like if you are a PvP lore-loving nerd like I am, then you'll get paired with other people who like that sort of thing too. Yeah, so did we answer that question really thoroughly? 200 players.
Yeah,
right?
the other thing, with the whole 200 player thing being on the same screen, the devs have been talking about how they've been balancing. They wanted a balance between like latency and graphics. So that's basically what they're doing here. They're kind of compromising with the details because like the environment will be very detailed. So it'll be really, and also let me just say that the game is going to be very scalable. And by that I mean what hardware you're using with your computer and stuff, so you can have a really crappy 5-year-old laptop, a Toshiba like you used to have.
That's how I played WoW. Yeah.
Could still play this game, but at very low settings, obviously. But then you can scale it way up to some top-of-the-line stuff that's coming out, like, to this day. And you'll be able to play it with everything just maxed out and incredible detail.
Moving from that old Toshiba to the gaming PC I have now was like going from an old junker to like a Ferrari in one step. It was really fun.
The Bugatti Veyron to my Versa. So it'll be very scalable. So the compromise they were talking about was the environment will be very detailed, but the player models not as much. Like they'll still look good, but they have made it to where it doesn't take up so much resources from your computer and your internet.
Yeah, so maybe the res of the armors will decay a bit and stuff like that when you're on screen with hundreds of players.
Right.
Which makes sense. I mean, there
because
has
you don't
to be
need
compromise.
That much detail. And then they can also use like technology like blurring more distant things like they did in Guild Wars 2. They had that kind of distant blur effect.
Okay, yeah.
So they can do stuff like that.
It looks kind of like an art painting. If you're looking at stuff far out, it's like a water painting, which is cool. But I don't mind at all things being degraded when you have that many people on screen at once. Because, I mean, just think about it, guys. Are you going to be sitting there checking out the armor on yourself and the people around you? No, it's a big battle. You're going to be fighting or you're going to be doing something else. And they have to let go somewhere to enable just that many players on screen at once. Technology we haven't reached that point. At least a lot of people with their computers.
Yeah, we don't all have fiber optics and massive supercomputers.
Yeah, right. And we'll want to be able to still play with those people. So it's definitely a necessary little evil.
Yeah, but like you said, if you have 200 plus people fighting all in one area, the last thing you're looking at is the person's armor.
It's not going to matter. You're not going to worry about that.
All right, so what was the other part? Oh, the repairing of armor. We're obviously not sure, because there hasn't been like any information released on this. But we can definitely see there being some kind of repair mechanic going on.
So for those who didn't play Oblivion, and like I know there's some of you watching this who have only ever played Skyrim, they had repair hammers in Oblivion that you actually had a separate skill for it called, I think it was Armorer was what it was called. Armorer, yeah. And what it did is it basically worked with the effectiveness of your repair hammers that you would find either in the world or buy at vendors, and you could just repair your armor on the go, because then in Oblivion we had the real RPG factor going on where your armor was degrading. Skyrim, your armor doesn't degrade at all, so you never had to worry about that, but in Oblivion your armor would degrade. And so I could be fighting in the arena, and this happened to me so many times, I'm sure my Oblivion players can relate. You're fighting in the arena and you have only one sword on you, and it breaks. You totally didn't notice that it was already degraded.
Son of a bitch!
So there you are, fighting with your fist and a shield against this orc flying his hammer around at you. But that's an interesting thing. Do we actually know if armor's going to degrade?
At least we don't know. I'm sure someone out there knows that has researched even more than we have. But with it being an MMO, they are able to add more complicated, advanced stuff like this into it. So I'm sure we're going to see some kind of armor degradation, like we see in most MMOs. Even now.
Every MMO I've played personally has had armor degradation, because it's a money sink for the game.
Of course. And I'm thinking it's not going to be so much the repair hammer like you see in Oblivion, but more like the Guild Wars 2 and other MMOs where you have to go to an NPC or go to a specific area like a blacksmith shop and repair it yourself. And obviously it'll cost money to do that.
And it'll cost money, right. What we were talking about is that we would like to see blacksmiths, if you have a good blacksmithing skill, to be able to repair armor themselves, maybe at either a decreased cost or without having, to pay at all,
right.
Because they've leveled their blacksmithing skill. That would be interesting to see also.
But then also with the degradation of the armor, I don't want it to just like instantly disappear if it breaks. But I actually want the stats to start going down as well. Okay. That would be an interesting thing, especially in a PvP thing. But I think that's also a later question, if not today, then on Wednesday. So I want to go further into that with the whole debuffing thing when you die. But that's an interesting thing I'd like to see, because I'm not going to say it hasn't been in an MMO before, because we get caught saying that.
Yeah, you have to say it's never been an MMO we've played before.
We just want to say that would be an interesting thing to add to the whole dying thing, that or just losing bits of your armor flying off, that maybe your stats will also start going down as well.
It's interesting, but we had a Guild Wars where if your armor degraded all the way, it would break and you would find yourself naked in dungeons and stuff like that. But
oh god, that's another thing. The whole, like I was saying, bits and pieces flying off. What if bits and pieces did start falling off?
Oh god, I was afraid you were going to say that.
So like you start seeing chips in your armor and stuff, and cracks and stuff as it's going down.
That would be so badass, but so difficult, and we'll never see it.
That would be a lot of resources in future MMOs, like maybe 10, 15 years down the line.
Yeah, right. When I'm a grandpa, still playing video games.
We're still going to play. Come on, like the average gamer now is like 35 now, so it's not like it's unheard of.
Nerds for life. Are you kidding me? This is a lifestyle here. This isn't just a hobby.
All right, next question from Riley H. I understand that when you die, you have the option of paying some sort of paying some sort of fee to stay where you are, or you can go to a fast travel shrine, which are called way shrines. But in Cyrodiil, not sure how to spell it, will you have the option to go back to your previous location? Even if I can't, will there be a nearby shrine we can go to? Because if we do have these options, say during a large PvP battle, wouldn't everyone just keep on getting right back into the fight, therefore leading to a never-ending battle? Okay, so this is kind of branching off to the other thing.
Okay, yeah.
But, okay, so from what I've been reading now, though, Cyrodiil will be split sort of into these, sections. I'm not sure if there's going to be any kind of, wall or something, but that's actually how they're going to be separating parts of Cyrodiil.
Yeah,
so that's how they're limiting the population to specific parts of Cyrodiil.
They call them war fronts. Was the term they used. Yes, war fronts.
So that's definitely good information to be getting about this whole Cyrodiil thing and how they're going to be managing population and making sure things just don't get completely out of hand for one faction, and the other two factions are just shit out of luck. So that's an interesting thing. From what I'm hearing, though, there's very limited way shrines. There may be only one way shrine per faction in each section.
That makes sense, like only at their keep. See, what I was thinking would be a cool way to res yourself when you die in PvP Cyrodiil would be like the only spawning point is like the infirmary back at your
back
keep.
at your main base, right?
Yeah, so, strategically, don't want to just be throwing your life, because that's what I hated about like Battlegrounds and like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. There we go, ripping on WoW. We love to do it. No, but was the fact that, I can just run into this massive mob of people, die, and I'll just res just a couple yards away, so who gives a shit,
Yeah, like dying has no ill effects at all.
Yeah, I like having those bigger impacts and having to, go back where you're fighting on the war front, you die, and you have to, res back in the infirmary with all the other dead soldiers, and you come back with like a cast on your arm and stuff like that. That'd be awesome. Crutches, yeah. My crippled high elf is trying to make his way out.
Yeah. Okay, so, but if you can res back at your body, we know there's going to be debuffs. And this is where the thing I was talking about with armor, it would be interesting to see that, yes, you die, your armor degrades, and then you see your stats going down as well there. So it's nothing new to see your stats degrade with a debuff, like in WoW. There's some kind of debuff when you die and you do decide to res at your body.
Sickness.
Yeah, there's res sickness.
Yeah.
So you may see something like that. We know there's going to be some type of debuff. We don't know what it's actually going to be it just like a percentage down on your stats, 20% or something every time you die. So even if you do keep rezzing back at your body, eventually you are going to be completely useless.
Right.
And then you're going to have to go back because, like we said, you're completely useless. There's no point in you being there. You're hardly even a meat shield. So, yeah, that's how they're going to be doing that. So even if you do have the ability to res back at your body, you are still eventually going to have to go back to a way shrine. So there's not going to be that never-ending battle that you were describing.
Yeah, because that would be a pain to have, an enemy's fighting you, sieging you outside of your fort, and you're killing them over and over, but they're rezzing just a couple yards away, or they're rezzing right back where they were dying. So, yeah, it'll prevent that from happening, luckily.
All right, next question from, I believe that's Skylight. I'm hoping that's Skylight. That's an interesting way to spell it.
Light.
Will there be soul-bound items in ESO?
Soul-bound items.
We found this ironic.
Yeah, it is pretty funny.
For those of you who don't get the joke, you have no soul because Molag Bal took it. So how can any item be soul-bound if you have no soul? So will there be character-bound items? We don't know. They haven't talked about anything like that.
Would we like to see soul character-bound items or not?
Maybe. I guess I don't really care either way. I mean, it makes some things unsellable. So if you're talking about specific items that take a lot of time to achieve, well then someone else shouldn't be able to just buy it because they're lazy. And then, if you really want a weapon, you should have to work for it.
Yeah.
And then you shouldn't be able to just, sell it to someone else who's too lazy to do it.
Now that I'm actually thinking about the whole soul-bound item thing, I think the reason they do it in MMOs is because if they didn't, every item that has ever been,
can be purchased.
Yeah, ever. And not only that, but you'd have, 1 trillion of, the same item, on the market because they never... So I think there will be some sort of, character-bound system, because I think it's important to the economy. Just talking economy alone, I think it's important to have.
Yeah.
But obviously, from an RP standpoint, you wouldn't want it because if I use an axe,
why can't I just hand this to the other person?
I can't have this axe in my family for generations because I literally cannot give it to you for some reason. But with it being an MMO, like you said, I think we're definitely going to see character-bound or account-bound items. Yeah.
Be it weapons or armor or whatever. Alright, so last question of the day from Own Mega Sig. Questions. Do you guys think that race perks will be important? And if they are important, in what ways do you think they will be balanced? Also, do you think certain races will start off with higher skills/stats in certain areas, like classic ES games, plus the class selected.
Race perks. I certainly hope they will be important, because I'm trying to think of a situation where it'd be awesome. Like, okay, say you're fighting for, I'll use your example, the Ebonheart Pact, right?
Woo!
And we got the Argonians on our side on the Ebonheart Pact, right? We're going to go siege a fort that happens to have a moat around it or something. It would be awesome to be able to send the Argonians around the side because they're good swimmers.
Or like an underground tunnel.
Or like an underground...
come out of a grate.
Yeah, flooded tunnel or something that they can breathe in. Like, that, I like that sort of identity, you know? Different races should definitely have inherent advantages. Wood elves should be better at archery. High elves should naturally have good magic abilities.
Exactly.
And stuff like that. I've always appreciated that, and that was something that... WoW did very well at its launch, and then lost it later on.
Yeah, kind of like...
They dumbed it down.
Yeah, it had no significance whatsoever. Yeah. So I'm thinking there are going to be race perks, and I think they're going to be very close to the ones we're used to seeing, like Argonians being able to breathe, and fire resistance for dark elves and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But it probably won't be as strong.
Right, they don't want to make it too overpowered, because then, like, they don't want to make it to where every destruction mage has to roll a dark elf, because they're just far superior, you know?
Yeah. I'm thinking it'll be more like if a person's on the fence about which race to play, well, then maybe this decision or this, perk will make the decision for that person. It'll help them along. So... yeah, it's still not confirmed that there will be race perks, but we do believe that there will be race perks, and we also think that they will be close to what we're used to seeing in other test games. And so, what was the other thing? Will there be stats, increased stats for specific races? I'm actually hoping there won't be.
Maybe like...
What do you think?
No, I don't know. That's a tough one, because in other MMOs they did it. I'm trying to think. Like,
because we're talking about balance and stuff.
Yeah, balance is tough. Like in World of Warcraft, they did it where like night elves had a natural 5% resistance to nature magic. Dwarves had a 5% resistance to frost. So say like a Nord would have a natural resistance to frost, which we actually did see in our test game.
Resistances I'm not actually against, because that can play into whole tactics and everything, and say he's like, oh, I see that Nord, I better be using fire and not like frost damage.
Right, yeah.
But I'm talking about like stats like +5 to short swords or something, or like shield and sword combo or something like that.
A wood elves having like +5 to using bows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, it falls down to how much of an advantage would it be. Right. Would it be enough to where it kind of falls under the last perk thing we were talking about?
I mean, I guess like in the end, it won't really matter anyways. It just helps you in the whole leveling curve, I suppose.
Yeah.
Since anyone can max something. But then if like you can max it, but then be that +5 on top of that because you picked a certain race, then that's kind of the iffy situation.
Yeah, no, they definitely have to go about it in a careful way, but I definitely want to see it in the game.
Yes.
Without a doubt, and I think we're in agreement there. But how they go about doing that, I don't know. That's their job to figure out, not ours, Kyle.
Alright, so I guess we'll end this episode on that note.
Yes.
That we have no pull whatsoever when it comes to what Zen Next does.
Alright, so you have been watching the ShoddyCast. Don't forget to tune in on Wednesdays, the next episode, right?
Yes.
And I have been Josh.
And I've been Kyle.
We'll catch you later.
Oh, and don't forget to like. Bye.